You know, Pohatu, I really like these visors.
Yeah, Lewa. What? Oh? Oh? Achoo! Aw, dang gummit.
Oh, look at you. Oh no.
Huh? Achoo!
Suckers. Hello everyone and welcome to the Recap Review. Today we're going to be looking over the Toa Phantoka. From left to right we have set number 8685 Toa Kopaka, 8686 Toa Lewa, and 8687 Toa Pohatu. Additionally, from left to right, the approximate piece count in these sets: Kopaka 54, Lewa 52, and Pohatu 68. The sets were released in the winter of 2008, and at time of release were approximately $13. Alright, so a lot of you are probably thinking, what the heck, Eljay? What are you doing? They're individual sets, they're not clone sets, man. Well, kinda. You see, while the sets are distinctly different, and they do have unique pieces and unique colors to them, my rationale here is a lot of what I'm going to have to say is going to be repetitive. It's going to drag things out. It's going to add an additional 3 to 6 to 14 extra reviews to the stockpile already, and I don't think a lot of you want to hear that. I will look over these guys individually, do not get me wrong. However, they are going to be in one video. I understand that some people are going to be annoyed about this and disappointed. However, that is my rationale going into this. Their build kind of atmospheres, if you will, the experience is incredibly similar. Almost identical, especially with these two right here. So going into this, all three of them in one video. However, I will, during certain intervals, look at them separately. And we'll do comparisons and so on and so forth. So I hope that makes sense. That is my rationale here. That's how I'm going to be going about this. So let us go ahead and jump right in with the disclaimer. Just because any given pro or con is here in this video does not necessarily mean it is my personal opinion. Please understand that unless I explicitly say whether or not I personally believe this is a pro or a con, then please assume that it is not, and I am simply gathering this either good or bad thing about the set from community opinions. That is my goal here, to give you an objective review based off the opinions from the community or objective facts that I can represent here. So, unless I explicitly say, please don't assume that any given pro or con is my opinion. Thank you. Now then, let's go ahead and get on into the review. With a general overview, we'll go over the things that are shared by all three of these sets. Right out the gate, they do have high piece counts. People really do like that about them. They are a standard Anika build, so if you know what that's like, you pretty much already know how these guys are constructed. They do come with quite a few new pieces, specifically the weaponry and the masks. However, what they come in more with are recolors. Lewa over here has an absolutely astounding amount of new recolors, along with new pieces. The new pieces being all the joints and sockets, considering that is a new mold for 2008. They come in lime. We also have the Mantax feet in dark gray. I believe we also now have the Anika legs in dark gray. I'm not 100% sure if the Anika armor came in dark gray or not, but I am confident it did. We also have the new Paru style Anika chest piece in lime. And, well, actually I think that pretty much sums up all the new recolors. So, a lot of gray and a lot of lime. As far as the new weapons are concerned, we have the Midax Sky Blaster, which, story-wise, Lewa did have a hand in naming. We also have the new sword piece, which almost looks like arcs of electricity are going through the center of it, and it looks really, really cool, really stormy, long, serrated, quite a unique look to Lewa. As far as an additional lot of new pieces, if that makes any sense, we have this new thruster piece that came with the Matoran, and, we get two of them here to complete this kind of whole aerial look, because the theme for early half of 2008 was the sky. We see the return of the shortened eye stalk in lime, no change there. We also see the return of the visor. However, we also have a new mask of levitation, a new Miru. And you can see, it does hold some similarities to the original or the older Mirus, but we will get into that later. So that sums up Lewa. That's what's new with him. New with Kopaka, we have the new mask, which is more reminiscent of Nujumetru's mask than it is any of Kopaka's. We see he uses a system lightsaber bar for an eyepiece. He doesn't have as many new recolors. The Pohatu legs in dark gray, the Inika feet in white, and I think the Inika torso, no. Oh, these, no. Yeah, actually, no, I think that's about it. He also has the shortened eye stalk, so his eyes are no longer blue, they are lime. However, his new pieces are these wings. They can kind of rotate up, rotate to the side, have them like that, or go into a jet formation. He also has a Midax Sky Blaster with 4 rounds, and we will get into that momentarily, as well as this bayonet, and I believe it was called a Blizzard Blade, Blizzard Bayonet, something like that. And my apologies for not remembering exactly. However, this is the kind of short piece, and it is attached to his Midax Sky Blaster. So, no more shield, and no more sword. Moving on to Pohatu. Many new recolors. We've got the Paraka pieces, Paraka knee armor in orange. We've got Kongu Mari's torso piece in dark gray, along with these arm pieces for the Hordika in dark gray. I believe that this pelvis piece is new in dark gray. No, I think that came with the Kongu. The Vaki legs also came with Kongu. However, the Inika feet are new in orange. That actually about sums it up. We do have the new joint pieces, the new sockets in dark gray, along with Kopaka. New pieces here, obviously enough, are these. We have 4 of these and 2 of these kind of propeller pieces. And you can fling them around like that. It looks really cool. Additionally, we have his visor returning, along with this mask. Now, this is supposed to be an adapted armor version of the Kakama Nuva. Obviously enough, it looks more like the Kanohi Vahi. So, make of that what you will. And then finally, the Midax Sky Blaster, this time mounted on his shoulder. He's gone that route. So, that generally covers all the new things for these 3 Toa. We're going to go ahead and look at what do they share. Well, they share the general Inika build. Obviously enough, Pohatu has a little bit more of a custom build, however, the general parameters are basically the same. Out of all of them, he has the most unique build. Lewa and Kopaka, on the other hand, are quite identical. Their leg construction, aside from the pieces used, and their torso construction is almost exactly the same. The only differences between them are color, armor, and weaponry. And, like I said prior, some of the pieces used. Now, with this comes its own pros and cons. The pros being that, they're decent constructions. They make sense for what they are. They look humanoid, and they have a level of complexity to them. They're simple, straightforward, and you kind of understand them, and they look at least humanoid. However, on the flip side, they're also at this point 3 years into use, and in the community during that time, people have been getting bored of them. So there's not a whole lot of interest in having them around any longer. Not to mention, for Kopaka, he has the additional issue of using the Paraka arms, and this means he only gets to move his lower arms up a certain amount of way before they inevitably can't go any further. Additionally, a lot of people had issue with their proportions. Now, one could definitely make the argument that they're not human, so they didn't necessarily need to have human proportions. However, many take issue with the fact that they look awkward. Kopaka has the same length of arms that he does his legs. Lewa has very thin legs and incredibly bulky arms. And Pohatu simply does not have hands. He has propellers. And many people took issue specifically with that. Finally, a great deal of issue that people took with these sets are their color schemes. We will actually go ahead and use this as a bridge into their prior forms. So let's go ahead and start with Kopaka's comparison. Alright, so here we have Kopaka Phantoka, and he was released in 2008. The prior form we saw him in was Kopaka Nuva from 2002. Now the main difference here is that he is much taller. Kopaka actually transitioned the best into Anika form out of all of the Phantoka, and arguably the Mystica, considering his color scheme didn't deviate a whole lot. While the others had copious amounts of silver and gray, Kopaka already had gray, so it worked out well for him. His color scheme has not deviated all that much. The biggest issue that people had with Kopaka Phantoka was that his visor was on the direct other side of his mask. It had always been featured on the right side of the Kakamanuva, as opposed to the left side as it is in the adaptive armor version. One of the pluses to this version, however, is the fact that you can attach different eye colors to it, considering this piece right here, be it a system little stud piece or this lightsaber blade. So a lot of people did enjoy that. However, all the iconic imagery from Kopaka, the shield, the long-bladed weapon, the eye stalk on one side of the mask as opposed to the other, is gone. Kopaka instead now models more after an airplane, and that is quite apparent. That is the main issue people took with this adaptation. Now, on the flip side, there's a lot more to Kopaka Phantoka than there is Kopaka Nuva. And that is the articulation. Kopaka Phantoka, because he's a Nika build, has far more articulation than Kopaka Nuva. The only articulation Kopaka Nuva has are moving his arms up and down, his legs, forward, backward, feet, hands, and the gear function. Kopaka Phantoka has all that as well, plus the addition of knees, elbows, and a head. That generally covers everything regarding Kopaka. So, there's the comparison. Let's go ahead and move on to Lewa. Here we have Lewa Phantoka, released in 2008, and his prior form, Lewa Nuva, released in 2002. Obviously, things are much, much different for Lewa. He is quite a substantial amount taller. He has additional bulk, specifically on his shoulders and his arms, and he no longer uses matte green. He also only carries one blade as opposed to last time, with his two katana featured here. Now, like I said previously with Kopaka, Lewa Phantoka also has far more articulation than Lewa Nuva has, and that's just a given considering the Anika build. However, what he gains in this articulation, he loses in his color scheme, as at the time many did not like, and to a degree still do not like, the extra amount of gray and the exclusion of matte green. While he still carries over the lime green, people were not very happy about that. Now, that aside, people do like his mask, at least in this variant. Of all the Phantoka to Phantoka Mystica from Nuva masks, Lewa's is one of the ones that carried over quite well, considering it does feature some similarities to the original Nuva mask. You can kind of see it here. Hopefully I'm pointing it out well enough. There are similarities. This looks like a better transition from this than, say, Pohatu's would. And many people still agree to that fact. Now, Lewa here does have a definite air of, well, aerial combat. It really works for him. Lewa Nuva, he's a guy with two blades, and his mask is quite streamlined. So there you have it. There's not much more I can say or think of at the moment, but that's the general comparison. Let's go ahead and move on to Pohatu. And here we have Pohatu Phantoka, released in 2008, alongside Pohatu Nuva, released in 2002. Now, the difference between these two is quite possibly greater than the other two Toa Phantoka. His color scheme is completely different. Gone is the matte brown and tan. In is gray and orange. Obviously enough, that's not the only thing that's changed. He now has a blaster on his shoulder and is lacking hands. Now, one could argue that these do slightly resemble the claw pieces that Pohatu Nuva did use. However, he no longer has hands. They aren't detachable. The only way to detach them to take the axle out. But obviously enough, that's not how the set was meant to be made. It needed these propellers. So that is a big change to Pohatu. He is still the shortest of the Phantoka, so there is that similarity. However, aside from that, these characters do not look like they are meant to be the same, especially when it comes to the mask. The Kakamanuva had an upward amount of kind of ridges and that streamlined look going upward. The Kakama in the adapted armor version doesn't have that. The top of it is streamlined, but it doesn't have the ridges. Those are now on the bottom, making it look more like a Kanohi Vahi. So, obviously enough, Pohatu Phantoka has more articulation as well. However, he has lost all characteristics of Pohatu Nuva, and many people are quite annoyed to this day about that. So that generally sums it up. Let's go ahead and look at the combination function. Now, while all the Toa Phantoka, Mystica, Makuta, Phantoka, and Mystica are all capable of this function, I'm going to focus in this video specifically on Lewa, since this is who it was advertised the most with. Now, obviously enough, the Matoran, which I covered in a previous video, are meant to link up with a certain Toa, and the way you tell which Toa is obviously because of their color corresponded. So we're going to go ahead and feature that right now, and this goes pretty much the same for all the other Toa and Makuta, which we'll get to in another video. So, as you can see here, on the back of Lewa, we have this kind of backpack thing that really works out with the silver on his shoulders and his weapons and whatnot. On the Matoran, you can see these 4 pinholes. One here, and one here. What you can want to go ahead and do is raise his arms up, raise his head up, kind of make it look like he's dangling, like you're Godzilla and you're holding him. He's like, "No, don't eat me! I'm gonna eat you!" Then, turn him around and line up these 2 pinholes on the side with these 2 pins right here. Once you hear a hopeful click, you're done. Pull the head down, do whatever you want with the arms, and there you go. Lewa now has a Matoran on his back. Now, in the story, this does have a particular amount of significance. They all wear adaptive armor, and these are Avtoran, which, when they interconnect or land on or touch the Toa, grant the Matoran special powers that they can share with the Toa. In Lewa's case, it's infinite ammo. Kopaka's, it's hard light, essentially, and Pohatu's, I forget Pohatu's, but we're going to imagine that he has something. Oh, it's super speed, even more super speed. There we go. So, obviously enough, this comes with its own advantages and pitfalls. For Lewa, it works out fine. Granted, they all look like they have this weird, just kind of dangling effect. Like, you don't really put their legs anywhere, so they just kind of flail. It looks better when they're at an angle. So for Lewa, it works out relatively fine. It was pretty much designed for him. With Kopaka, it also works out for the most part. Solek's kind of larger half of the mask. You do need to kind of cant his head to one side, but it will work. The one it doesn't work out very well on is undeniably Pohatu. While Photok's head can cant kind of this side, it can't come down all the way. Otherwise, you're going to push Photok off, and you're going to push Pohatu's head off. So that's generally how it works. This video is actually well timed because 2016 is doing a similar concept to this. However, the difference is the 2016 sets don't look complete without the Matoran, but like without the creatures, that is. But these guys look fine either way. So that essentially sums it up. Color schemes work. It all kind of works well with their sets. Obviously, the Matoran have their own pros and cons, which you can see in a prior review. But there you have it. That generally sums up the Toa Phantoka. The one thing I do want to mention, however, is in the backs, when they do not have the Matoran on their backs, they do have open pins, and some people may have an issue with that. Before I wrap up, I'll mention the Midax Sky Blaster. This is a spring-powered blaster. You have 4 silver Zamor spheres in it, and all you need to do is basically like a turn wheel. You push this lever down. Come on. Oh, boy. Yep, and they have a lot of force to them. 4 rounds. And it works beautifully. Try not to get it wet, because there is a spring in there, and that could erode. However, that is just a very brief overview of the Midax Sky Blaster. I'm sure we'll discuss it at length later. So, there you have it. That has been my review of the Toa Phantoka. What do you guys think? Do you like them? Leave your thoughts in the comments below or on the TTV Message Boards at board.ttvpodcast.com. Join me next week when I will be going over their enemies, the Phantoka Makuta. Thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you then.